Good evening. Welcome to the 5-8, where we discuss each of the week's 5 most fucked up topics for 8 minutes each. 5 topics, 8 minutes, 2 hosts, a guest, some singing, a lot of curse words, and as many cocktails as we deem necessary. LB, how are you?
I'm okay. How are you? I feel like this was a rough week for a lot of people.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
was heavy, heavy, heavy.
Yeah.
Um, I have my water because I feel like actually if I did have a cocktail, although I don't have cocktails anymore really, that I would just pass out in the middle of the show. But I'm hanging in there. And we have to apologize to everybody. We're not in costume. You guys know we usually do epic Halloween shows. It just felt off this week to do something like that, and we just didn't have our act together in that way.
There's enough
So forgive
cosplayers.
us.
Yeah.
There's enough cosplayers. It doesn't mean we won't have more holiday specials. We'll have some holiday specials coming up here, but it was a little too heavy. I don't know if you're, if you want to share that, like, how your week, how heavy it is.
Yeah, it's heavy, but I have to tell you,
Yeah,
I feel pretty good right now. And I'm
you
going to
do.
tell you why.
Oh,
Okay.
right.
So my toilet broke 2 days ago.
Oh,
That thing, it's called the float, which is the thing that inside the bowl it floats and it tells the thing to stop putting the water in there. It
yeah.
just stopped working.
Mm,
So I went on YouTube and I watched a video about it and I bought the thing for $12
yes.
and I opened the thing and I went to install it and everything was going great except I couldn't get the nut off on the bottom of the bowl. And I
Okay.
was all frustrated, and then, I don't know, I was resting before the show, and it was, like, 6:45, and I was like, "Fuck this, I'm doing this right now." So,
You fixed your
between, like
toilet before the show?
I did. Not only did I fix it before the
Oh,
show, and it works, I'm so
mhm.
proud of myself. So,
Okay, I'm
I
proud
feel
of you
like
that
we
it worked.
need it. We need the toilet because there's a lot of shit that we're gonna flush away on this show this week. That's what we're gonna do.
Is
We're
it
gonna
holy?
flush away.
Yeah.
We're gonna flush away the shit. We're gonna flush away, classified documents. Whatever needs flushing. You remember he did that.
I
He flushed.
remember.
Yeah,
Whose
he's
name
flushed
was
them.
in there? I'm trying to remember whose name
Elise
was.
Stefanik, I think,
Was it
wasn't that?
Stefanik? I thought so.
Isn't she the toilet lady? I don't know.
Oh,
I think so.
God, help us, please.
Yeah,
Oh my goodness. Thank goodness
yeah.
everything. We've got some prayers to say tonight. All right. Well, what do you think? I love our guest. I'm very excited for our guest.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, he's gonna
feel
be good.
like
He's gonna be good.
we should just jump right into it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, by the way, people who, join and are members and go to the Substack already know who the guest is. That's another
yeah,
perk of membership. Yeah.
I haven't seen whether they're spoiling it in there.
I don't know. It's
But
okay.
you can spoil. All right, here we go. What's our first one? Holy rollers.
Holy
Well,
rollers. Okay, LB, we have a new Speaker of the House.
do
What are
we?
your thoughts? Yeah, I guess we do.
Yeah. Well, it came as no surprise to me that our Speaker of the House was once the attorney. Remember? It's always the lawyers, everybody. Follow the
Mm,
lawyers. Was the senior attorney for a hate group.
no way.
It's so on brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, that's who he is. Look, I could not. We'll get into that in a second. I could not watch it. I could not. It was going on in the other room, right? I'm in a house with with actual an actual my father, a man of the cloth, as people like to say, but a real deal, like the real deal, right? As those of you who were when he and my mother, these are real ministers. These are people who understand scripture, studied it. It's it, it was so offensive that was even on the television. Um, this prayer circle, whatever the hell they were doing on their knees on the floor of the house. I saw little images of that. I'm like, oh my God. And this sort of, we're now throwing out separation of church and state. It's never gone well. It's never gone well where nations that had chances at democracy or were democracies themselves threw that out for theocratic rule. It's so that's not the number one story all the time. And that actually what's happening now is I heard some pundits on television, the news, the crazy news people, and on the this corrupt social media stuff going on. Actually, the debate was, well, is he a true believer? Or is he just in for power? It's like, uh, that's not the question. That's not the debate. That's not the discourse that's meaningful here. It doesn't fucking matter if he believes what he's saying. You better believe he fucking means it. That's the story.
Yeah.
Story is they mean it, not what's in their minds or their hearts. It doesn't, that's not the story. The story is they mean this. They elected the guy because Donald Trump wanted him. Why? Because he was the architect, the chief architect of the fucking coup. Now we're finding that stuff out.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. Did you know that? Maybe it just slipped by us because there were so many crazies with their hands in the pot of like, let's just take democracy and turn it into our own oligarchy. Yes, us, me, mwah, 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 right? It was that frenzy, that madness that we've been in. But Trump wants this guy because he's ready to coup again. Let's coup some more. And this was the guy. Let's come back to him. I just want to really drill down on this. And I know a lot of our audience knows this already. I know everyone's aware of it, but there are new folks here. This thing lives on. I want to make sure that we're saying here now in this moment who this lawyer is and what he did, what he made his career purpose. Okay? You don't get designated by the Southern Poverty Law Center as a hate group unless you're hating. Unless you really are doing some hating. It's not just, I'm going to throw bombs out and be, a Matt Gaetz arsonist, chaos entrepreneur. It's actually putting hate at the center of your mission and doing everything in your power with tremendous resources to make sure, and people, to make sure you radicalize as many people as you can into your hate, and then you change laws to make sure you have the law enacting for your hate. That's what he is as a lawyer. That's what he sought to do, is take our laws and change them or reinterpret them somewhere, floating them up to this extreme radical Supreme Court that everybody knew they were going to get with Donald Trump, and everyone was waiting for it to happen. Since the 1980s, they've been waiting for this shit, to have this court like this. Okay? These radicals. Oh my God. Okay, so here's what he did at the Alliance of Defending Freedom. That's the hate group, the ADF.
Ooh.
Is what I always knew about it. I can never remember these stupid names they come up with. Always. They're defending freedom with their hate.
Yeah.
With their hate. So what does the group, the lawyer, want to do with the group that's calling themselves, we're here to defend freedom? Strip people of their rights.
Whoa.
Imagine that. Imagine that. There's a whole bunch. You guys just go look up this. Go look up the Alliance to Defending Freedom and what he did. Go to the SPLC website. Look into this hate group. The thing that stuck out to me in terms of how extreme and radical this man is, of course, we can all imagine what he thinks about women and what women should be doing for him. Just making babies, making a workforce. The reason why he's saying we've got to cut Social Security and Medicare and all these things is that, and all the programs that help people, is that really the women who were supposed to be making babies for us haven't made us enough babies. And if they just made us enough babies, if they just get back down, get back in there, get back in that bedroom and make us some babies, then we'd have a workforce and our economy would soar. Because we have so many able-bodied workers because all these sluts would finally be having the babies. This is what this man, he's saying these things. I'm not even changing his words all that much. So, but guess what? Right? And so that's why if we had that better economy, then we could afford programs. We could afford Social Security. We can afford it. We can't afford it because the women aren't making enough babies. The able-bodied women aren't making enough able-bodied babies. That's code for white women. You need to start producing more. This is what it is. But that's not what got him the hate moniker for his group there that he represents. What got them the hate moniker was specifically this guy, right? What he did, and it's not even a moniker. It's a very specific, very carefully well thought out, very well researched, very well sourced, near factual definition of a hate group. That's what the Southern Poverty Law Center does. And he went out and got it for them, for his little Alliance for Defending Freedom, because he advanced an agenda to sterilize trans people. That's what he wants to do. A little bit of Nazi going on in this guy. Can you hear it? We're going to sterilize trans people. That's what he wants. I want everyone to just absorb that.
Yeah.
State-sanctioned sterilization of U.S. citizens. That's somehow defending freedom. That's who the Speaker of the House is. That's who he is. I won't even get into his reasons for this because they don't matter. Again, it doesn't matter. He can bloviate about faith all he wants. It's bullshit. What he's doing is hate. What he's doing is fascism. And the only reason he got Donald Trump's attention and why he was called this chief architect, because I said I'd come back to that, I know I'm going long here, is because he used the pandemic. Remember how we had to kind of, states had to like encompass more mail-in ballots because there was a fucking pandemic and people didn't want to die to vote. And thank God they didn't have to go die to vote. They could vote from home. Because of that accommodation, he made the argument, and this is what they all love, because everyone's looking for arguments. How can we throw out votes? How can we throw out brown people votes? How can we throw out women votes? How can we throw out, votes that aren't for us? How can we throw out vote? How can we just disenfranchise voters? Because we're defending freedom. Remember, we're defending freedom. How can we disenfranchise all these votes? Somebody come up with a way. And the lawyer for the hate group said, well, we can make the argument that those changes around because of the things that had to happen in order to have people be able to vote and not die. We can make the argument that he had constitutional infirmity. Came up with that bullshit phrase. And that means we can reject the entire electoral college votes wherever we see fit. And we can pick our own electors because these changes weren't constitutional. You can't do something because of infirmity. And that just, oh my God, he came up with the idea. This is how we can throw out votes. Let's do it, everybody. Donald Trump, City Powell. Let's jump on this guy's Johnson. So now we have a dick. Literally.
Yeah.
A hard-on with nowhere to go. Excuse me. Boo. Happy Halloween. This is also why we didn't feel like celebrating Halloween, because we've got the ghouls are running the House of Representatives. This is the scariest shit we've ever been through. It really is. This is scary shit. So I don't feel like laughing about scariness.
Yeah.
And ghouls and monsters when there's real monsters among us just trying to throw off our rights, throw out our votes, take over our nation, to hand it to a fucking criminal so they can what? Make a payday? He's a lawyer. Not that I don't love my lawyers, but come on. All right, that's a lot. I can't. I could go on and on and on about this, so I'm going to stop. So
Okay.
what do you have to say about it? I'm sorry I
I
went
think
over.
no, it's fine. This is the rant. We want ranting on this show.
Oh, that
Yeah,
was
I don't know.
restrained. I had to restrain myself.
I feel like with this guy taking over, it's sort of like when Killmonger became the king at Wakanda, and everyone was like, "Oh shit, fuck, what
Yeah.
did we just let happen?"
Yeah.
Except that it's not Wakanda at all because it's the whitest group of men ever assembled. But you know what I mean. It's that level of, oh no, what have we gotten ourselves into? It's terrible. He wants to
There
criminalize
are a lot
all
of
like
rhinos, though.
gays.
So,
Yeah, I don't
yeah.
know. Whatever. Let's not talk about him anymore. Let's go to the next topic. We don't want to keep our
Okay.
guest waiting. He doesn't have an
He doesn't
eternity
have
to wait.
I know, I know.
Yeah.
I told him we'd get to him quickly, and now I'm the one hogging the time, hogging the clock.
Yeah. That's
All
okay.
right, what do we got here for
All right.
Holy War?
It's Holy War.
Yeah.
I'm going to try to be quick a little bit. The transition here is that this new guy, Mike Johnson,
Mike Dick.
this
Yeah.
Christo-fascist, wants to bring things back to the 4th century, 5th century, which, by the way, any lending of money at interest was usury and prohibited. So is he going to also destroy all capitalism? Probably not. So he's a fucking hypocrite. Anyway, moving on. Okay, this is what I want to talk about. And this is important, and it's not funny. Okay. It's been 20 days since the Hamas terrorist attack. Okay. Basically 3 weeks, Saturday. Okay. Of October 7th, if I'm doing the math right. Yeah. 20 days. This was not, you can call it terror. We can call it war crimes. We can call it atrocities, whatever word we want to use. Doesn't matter. What happened was Hamas operatives, militants burst through unexpectedly and killed 1,400 people.
Yeah.
Not soldiers, not like military people, not operatives, just like women, children, the elderly, people at a concert that were dancing, people living their lives in this place. And this was a horrible attack. And I think everybody in the world kind of was like, what the fuck just happened? And you saw this outpouring of support where people were putting the Israeli flag on, in Berlin, it was on the Brandenburg Gates. I don't understand how basically it took less than 2 weeks for this thing that happened to Jewish people, to them, not the government of Israel, to Jewish people living there, innocent people living there, suddenly has given rise to all of these anti-Semitic attacks all over the place. Like, I just don't understand it. We went from this outpouring of sympathy to, hate crimes in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it was.
Yeah.
We have, in New York, at Cooper Union, you had the, students of the Jewish group that were like, in the library barricaded because the protesters were like, getting aggressive with them, making them fear for their safety. You have, of course, in Detroit, the president of the synagogue was stabbed outside her home. Maybe that was a coincidence, but I don't think so. In California, you have a guy just goes to somebody's house and tries to kill the family and says because they're Jewish. So I want to make sure that we peel back what's happening in Israel with Bibi's government right now, literally right now, and peel that back and just stop and pause and be like, the Jewish population of the world is not the Bibi government of Israel. And there's just it's not okay. And I think it's important that we keep saying it. It's not okay. It's never okay. We cannot have this anti-Semitism anywhere, especially in this country. We just can't have it. And when you have a rise in anti-Semitism, as any scholar of fascism will tell you, it's one of the major precursors of fascist stuff, right?
Yeah.
That it just is always. And why? Because one of the first things that fascists do is try to find a group of people to blame for all of the problems. And Jewish people, because they live in lots of different countries that are conveniently placed for that hatred that they do not deserve. Okay. And I just feel like I wanted to say something about it because it's been really bothering me. And again, this doesn't have anything to do with, the politics of it. We're going to get to that later. Or, what Bibi's doing. It doesn't mean I don't feel bad for the Palestinians right now and the people living in Gaza. None of that. Okay. But this is not great. Okay. It must be called out whenever we see it because it's a real slippery slope, real fast from this stuff to fascism. LB, remember the
Yeah.
4chan? Remember your 4chan story that I've heard now 80,000 times? What's the first thing that they did, those fuckers with the memes on 4chan? What's the first thing that they did? The
They made a
first symbol that they
swastika.
used. They made
Yeah.
swastikas. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the first fucking thing they did.
Yeah.
So we can't have this. And if you see it somewhere, and I think everybody watching this knows, but I feel like I have to say something about it, call it out. That's all.
Thank
That's
you.
my rant.
Well,
I
I just want to say, you said one thing to me that really, I thought, oh, there was such clarity in it. It was so simple. It's like, if you want to free Palestine, support, you need to get rid of Hamas. Like,
Yeah.
this is a terror group running a people, right? Who are trying to throw off it and what they feel is oppression, and what many argue was apartheid when it was, because God knows what it is now, right? What's happening there now is just, I don't even know how to qualify it. Our guests will help us, but the way to support the Palestinians is to support the throwing off of Hamas.
Yeah, this
is the way to support them. So that's, if we could help folks with that message, I think it's that this movement is happening with the youth in this and the college campuses. What makes me very worried about that, and just in a way beyond, I'm very worried about the hate crimes. I'm very worried about the safety of my family. I'm worried about the safety of others. I'm worried about, just you're right. We just can't, it just is sort of allowing it to flourish in the name of this anti-Semitism being collapsed with Bibi's government, right? Yeah. And just like, we're just going to hate all Jews, this sort of thing that's happening, and it's happening it happened with fire. Like, it just sort of went whoosh, like wildfire, across campuses. And I'm very concerned, in addition to all the immediate concerns around all that, that this was intentionally inflamed as well as a way to sort of peel off this youth vote, because we had a lot of young people ready to vote for Biden, knowing that they needed to throw off because the Roe stuff, right?
Yeah.
Knowing they need, and in this just sort of, I'm not saying there's something conspiratorial. I'm just saying there was an opportunity in this moment to weaponize this youth vote in a way that enables us to end up with our version of Bibi, back with this strong man in Trump. And I'm very worried about it. So I think we have to keep our eye on that as well.
Yeah. Good point. Okay. That's what
All
I
right.
have to say about that. Now, you know what it's time for.
Singing.
Because we did we have karaoke last? What did we do last week? Oh, we did our bit last week.
We did a bit.
Is that what we did? Yeah, we did the bit. So yeah, so it's been a while. So here's a
couple weeks.
Little karaoke.
As a coach at Ohio State, he huffed a predator. He huffs and he puffs, tries to make the house below. His mentor, Dennis Haster, is a child molester. Will the GOP back him? No, no, no. He wants to impeach Hunter Biden, dodge the subpoena cause he's guilty. For Donald Trump, he is Luca Brasi. Liz Cheney told him, get the fuck away from me. He's the biggest loser. His name is Jim Jordan. Jason's Cooper. He is Trump's attack dog. His name is Jim Jordan.
All right. There you go. There you go.
Amazing work by Chunk.
Amazing work by Chunk. Yeah. Just he pulls this stuff out. And I thought of that last week right before the show, and that fucking song's been in my head all week. So I'm glad now it's going to be retired. Yeah. Have you seen the video? I watched the real video for that song. He looks like he's like
long time since
14.
I've seen it. Yeah.
How old is he? Is he like 35 now? Like, was he
I don't
7 when he
know.
made this thing? I don't know. It's
He's a
very strange.
baby. It
Okay.
made me feel very old.
I
will
know.
say
I
that.
know.
Yeah.
Totally. Oh, I got to put the banner back. And then, okay, our guest. It's time for our guest. He is an Australian former diplomat. He is a speaker of Mandarin, and he's the co-founder of International Intrigue, an excellent newsletter and website and podcast. John Fowler, welcome to the 5-8.
Hi, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here. I'm pretty impressed you got some laughs out of that situation. I could take some notes on turning horrible, shitty news into good comedy.
That's what we do here. That's our total. That's our MO. You know.
Absolutely.
Well, it's wonderful to see you.
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really excited. It's I've been watching you guys for a while. It's a
thanks.
real thrill.
So I want to tell people unfamiliar. It's called International Intrigue, and you and a bunch of other diplomats and people that work in that space compile a newsletter that goes into your email box and kind of does a wrap up of things that are happening globally, all around the world, and does it in a way that is not boring at all. It's kind of snarky and it's funny and clever. So I signed up for this. I don't know. You were on my podcast a while ago. I've had it in there since then. And it's really great and it's helpful. And especially like the last 2 weeks, it's been very helpful. Because I'm like, okay, what do these guys think? I want to know, I'm looking for what smart people think about things. So I wanted to, I turned to that and it was very useful for me. So first of all, thank you for that. Do you want to tell everybody like where they can find you and talk a little bit about how this came into being and what the idea for it was and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, firstly, thank you for those kind words. I think what you just said was kind of what we had hoped to achieve. So as you mentioned, I was a former Australian diplomat, and along with another former colleague of mine, two former colleagues of mine, actually, we kind of got, this is back in 2021, start of 2022. We just, this sense, you guys were just talking about it before, this sense that the world is just kind of falling apart at the seams. Geopolitics is really relevant again, in a way that it hasn't really been since the fall of the Berlin Wall. But there's not really anything out there. You've got The Economist and the World section of the Times and all that kind of stuff, but there wasn't anything out there that was kind of really making this stuff accessible. You mentioned the last 2 weeks, like where do you turn to kind of know how to think about what's going on in the Middle East without wanting to, punch your head in after reading horrible stuff. You got to be, I'm a big believer in comedy as a way to kind of surreptitiously give people a dose of medicine and be like, hey, you need to know about this, but I don't want to just, tell you that everything's terrible and there's no hope. So we started this newsletter. It's going pretty well. We've got 75,000 odd people, some pretty important folks reading it, and some curious folks out in the middle of nowhere. So it's really for everybody. But the idea is that it wraps up the most important stuff in the world that's going on. And as I said, we're a team of former diplomats, so we try to add a little bit of what's going on behind the scenes based on our experience. So yeah, people can find it if they just Google International Intrigue. That's probably the best way because the website's a bit of a mouthful. But I obviously recommend people subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Okay, before we get into the serious stuff, I have 2 questions for you that are I think are percolating in everybody's mind. Right, the first one is, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a gin and tonic with a little bit of lime juice in it.
Okay.
Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers to your health.
To your health. Happy Friday. And the second thing is, being an Australian diplomat, did George Papadapa Ding Dong
Oh yeah.
ever try to get you drunk and then talk to you about weird professors in Malta?
Sadly not. Otherwise, I think I'd be sort of an ambassador to the UN or something. It would have been a real career winner for me. No, that actually, I have a few friends. That was in London, and our ambassador he said that to was a former foreign minister. I had a couple of friends who were intimately involved in that whole situation.
Oh, this is what I thought. It's a small world there for you, John Fowler.
It is.
All right. No Papadapa Ding Dong for you. Okay.
Yeah. So okay. One last thing is because I've been doing this in my brain. It's Australian former diplomat, not former Australian diplomat, right? Because you're still Australian.
That's right. Yeah, I am still Australian. I live in America, but I am still I'm still a citizen of my country of birth. That's right. Yeah. So
we're going to talk about the virtues of that place a little later on. But okay, so I talked a little bit about the anti-Semitism coming out because of these attacks. But right now, as I said, in Gaza, Israel's on the move. Nobody seems to know exactly what they're up to. Talk a little bit about what's your take on what's happening, like what's happened so far, where you think it might be going, what things people should be on the lookout for, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, right now, as we're talking, I've got the New York Times kind of live blog open in front of me here, and it looks like that Israel is making their sort of ground invasion move right now. I think a lot of folks in our circles have been surprised that they've waited almost pretty much 3 weeks on the dot to kind of go in. I mean, obviously they've been attacking from the air. I think I read somewhere 6,000 bombs or so have been dropped on Gaza in 3 weeks, which is pretty wild. I think for context, when the British were bombing Syria in the early 2000s or 2010, 11, 12, that period, they were kind of running 2 sorties a day versus 6,000 bombs in 3 weeks. So I don't want to give the impression that Israel hasn't been attacking, but I think they're now starting to put soldiers and tanks on the ground. I mean, there's always a chance that this is a limited incursion. They pull back by the morning, kind of testing the defenses of Hamas in Gaza, but they've cut off internet, it looks like, as well. So all of those signs point to that this is the big one. If we zoom out a bit, I think it's been interesting. You guys were chatting a bit about kind of how the narrative didn't take very long to turn into anti-Semitism, right? And it's really interesting because I think, I don't know if I'd go as far to call the global kind of country level, media level reaction anti-Semitic, although it's at times bordering on it. But it really did take, I think, probably only about 48 hours after what were, horrific attacks, about 48 hours for most countries, particularly in the region, and a lot of media outlets, perhaps with the American ones accepted, to sort of start saying, I don't want to say justifying it, but kind of just being like, okay, fine, but don't go in and cause a huge problem. So we've kind of been sitting in this weird 3 week, or let's say, I don't know, like 15-day period where the world has really started to kind of go, okay, what happened was horrible, but it doesn't excuse you going in and causing a humanitarian crisis.
More horror?
Yeah, well, exactly right, LB. I mean, the scale of what's going on already is horrific. We don't need to kind of dwell on that. But it's interesting to see that Israel has waited so long. I think that's the kind of key takeaway, and I think that's a big part of that is your President Biden and Blinken and Jake Sullivan. They've done, I think, I've been critical of in parts of Biden's foreign policy a little bit. But I think they've done a superb job in kind of saying to Israel, working the behind the scenes pressure points to say to Israel, hey, listen, you can't, and this is my view, but you can't really win a war going into an urban environment like Gaza, where 500 kilometers of tunnels is what they estimate Hamas have. New York subway is about 400 kilometers of tunnels for reference. So just an absolute labyrinth underneath Gaza. You're not going to kill everyone. You're not going to kill every Hamas operative. You're not going to get rid of them in a ground incursion. It's going to take a long time to get rid of them. You're going to have to do things, intelligence, special operations over a long period of time. And the American government, and I think and European governments to an extent as well, are saying, just don't go in there and lose and make it difficult for us to support you. Don't go in there and make things worse. Let's be honest, it would make things worse.
There's also hostages, right? So
yeah, I don't know how maybe you guys have views on this. The hostage thing is so difficult, right? Because there's 200 or so hostages from a bunch of different countries, 25, 30 odd Americans. But that's what Hamas does. They went and killed 1,000 or 1,200 people brutally. And they took hostages because they know that the way our political systems, the way that democratic political systems operate is we put an absurd amount of value. And I don't want to say absurd because they are people, but like we value those people in a way that Hamas knows, that will be a political calculation, meaning that we can keep doing this we can attack, we can take a couple of hostages. I mean, the guy who runs Hamas now was he was in Israeli jails for in and out for 20 something years. He was released when Netanyahu exchanged 1,000 Palestinians for one Israeli soldier.
Yeah.
So it's such a difficult issue because obviously you have to do everything you can to get hostages back. But I mean, this is why you don't negotiate with hostages, right? Because once you start to, you set this precedent of now we have to, and they can take 200 hostages and know that it's going to be a massive consideration in your next move. So I guess the high level bit of all of that is just like, I mean, there's no good answers to any of this, right?
No, I think that this region wants to burn it down, both sides.
Yeah.
And that terror attack was the tipping point to green light and justify, let's all become mass murderers.
Yeah.
So it's very dark. It's a very dark moment.
It is, yeah.
And I feel like it's unretractable.
Well, but I think that's the problem. Is that's what they like, the terrorists and people who support the terrorist, and there's a ton of people who won't tell you to your face that they think that what Hamas did was justified, but believe it was.
Yeah.
Which is horrific.
We know. They will tell. They do tell it to your face.
Yeah.
And if you're Jewish or you have Jewish family members, they have no problem telling it to your face. Let me tell you.
Yeah. Yeah. It's absolutely horrific. And
which has nothing to do with like, what are you talking about? What, like, again, it's horrific. It's horrific.
And I think you see a region now that, I mean, again, you've got to be careful painting with big, broad strokes because you don't want to kind of lump everyone in together. But the reaction of a lot of citizens in Arab countries around the region has been anti-Semitic. It's just as simple as that. Like it is as simple as they, I think if you press them, like more reasonable kind of ones would say, no, of course I don't condone the murdering of people, but at the end of the day, Israel is illegitimate. It shouldn't be there, and we want to get rid of it. And when you start from that position, I don't know what kind of conversation you can have after that, right?
Especially when you have like, grandma as a hostage. There's no moral high ground once you're doing stuff like that. None.
Yeah.
I mean, they have no, and what they both want is not, and the Likud, the Netanyahu's party, wants the same thing that Hamas wants, which is for the other side to just go away and be, and be gone. So you can't have either one of those things. But those are the two governments right now that are running the show there, which adds a level of complexity to the entire thing, I think.
Yeah,
makes it so complicated.
Agree.
Yeah. Not that it was, because it was so simple.
So easy before, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was because, Jared Kushner solved the entire.
Oh, that's right.
Crisis.
Jared.
Yeah. He was.
Got him.
He was to the rescue. Okay. So turning away from the Middle East for a moment, you were posted to China. So that's your area of expertise. And we don't really talk about China very much on this show. I don't know. It just doesn't come up as much. But I'm wondering now, we have, the world is on fire. There's lots of movement going on. China seems to be just sitting back, biding its time, playing both sides. What do you think's going on there? What is their calculus? Where are they going to wind up on all this? Are they going to use it as a pretext to go invade Taiwan when no one's paying attention? Are they going to continue to play both sides? What do you think is going to happen?
How let me say that. How super villainy are they in this moment? Really? It's like they always tip everything into a cartoonish thing with their
a Marvel universe. Yeah.
Yes. Ridiculous.
If they were in the Marvel universe, they've got a ton of problems in their own backyard that they're trying to figure out before they figure out how to take over the world. So I don't know what part of the origin story of which superhero that is, but that's their current situation.
Okay.
To your question, Greg, I think, China will play both sides because ultimately they're cold, real politique kind of operators. It's what's in it for China is first and last consideration. And right now, you know, I bang on about this idea that the world is going multipolar. I try not to use jargon because it's fucking tedious and very, very irritating when people do.
This is exciting.
I'm sorry, that's my
Fowler,
Australian coming out.
We got you there. You got comfortable enough to swear as a diplomat.
Boy.
This is
Well, you've unleashed the
we're
floodgates.
very successful diplomats as well. We're just, you know, in a different direction.
My native people don't have a problem swearing, that's for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. All right. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean
No, not at all. Not at all. What was I saying? Yeah, so I mean, realistically, what we're talking about is a multipolar world, which just like really quickly means since the fall of the Cold War was two major powers. That's a bipolar world where you have two kind of powers fighting each other, but not fighting each other and keeping things stable-ish. Fall of communism, Soviet Union. You have a unipolar world. That's America for the last 30 years, kind of. You know, there are wars, there are conflicts, obviously, but I don't think there was kind of anything that anyone really thought might escalate to world war status because America was in charge of things. The most powerful, undisputed country. Now we're kind of moving into this place, kickstarted by, I think, a ton of things, but COVID, the Ukraine war, and on and on and on, where there's going to be a lot of different countries that hold power over their regions. It's going to be much more difficult for America to kind of boss people around everywhere else. And, you know, Turkey's going to have more power. Brazil, India, China, obviously. Russia, if it hadn't invaded Ukraine, would have been on that conversation.
BRICS, but right? We noticed.
Yeah, the BRICS. Exactly right. And that's their play, is they're trying to kind of rise up in power. Now, I mention that because if they're trying to kind of usher in a new world order for the next, you know, let's say 50, 60 years. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a bad one. It's just a new one. So chaos helps them. That's the point I'm trying to get to here is uncertainty and chaos helps unsettle what we have now and move into this new era. So China, who wants that new era, is happy to see things that don't affect its national security, its borders, its core interests happen abroad, that take America's attention, that unsettle Europe, that changes the game, that keeps people focused elsewhere, so that China can, you know, sit back and, you know, I don't want to paint them as kind of nefarious individuals wanting this kind of crisis, because I think that would be perhaps a bridge too far, but they're certainly not unhappy that Russia invaded Ukraine. They're certainly not unhappy that this is blown up.
They're the mob boss in the Batman, in the Christian Bale first Batman.
Exactly.
Right?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yep.
Guys, we're all making the mess. It's all for like the guy who knew that whatever the hell his name was, Liam Neeson. But I'm going to sit back and I'm going to reap all the rewards of this.
Yeah, chaos.
Until the scarecrow blows hallucinogenics up his nose and he goes crazy. So who can be the scarecrow?
As happens to us all.
As happens to us all.
Tale as old as time.
I feel like they do have, we don't talk about China enough. We don't. I feel like they do have, it would be naive to think that they don't have sights and aims in the region of conflict at the moment in the Middle East with Israel and Palestine. I mean, they clearly have some kind of wish or desire in there. What is it? Do you know? Like what's not just the chaos and it's disrupting everything. Do they want to do a land grab? Do they want to be the ones to come in and say, we'll rebuild everything and then we'll own this, or you'll be indebted to us? What's their deal with this particular region?
It's a super good question. And there's a complex answer, but I'll try and be quick about it. So I think we saw them last year make a play to try and build relationships with Saudi Arabia, I think is the biggest way to say it. But the idea was kicking America out of the region, supplanting America as the big dog in the Middle East. A lot of Americans, rightly so, were like, it's all yours, buddy. Like that's a thing we don't need on our plate anymore. And, American policy for the last kind of decade has been like, how do we get the fuck out of Israel?
But how will Jared Kushner get another $2 billion if that's so?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if we elevate it to kind of the good folks at State Department, my former colleagues, and we take away the politics out of it, the policy is to get away. I shouldn't say get out of Israel, get out of the Middle East, which obviously means supporting Israel, but kind of in a way that hopefully the region's stable. China would like its first option would be, we would like to be the one that everyone turns to make deals and come to for help, and we will be the Solomon dividing the baby on all your issues, and we will be very wise, and you will take our words because we're brilliant. That's their number one goal. Yeah, exactly. They don't know what they're getting into. If they can't have that, then this kind of arrangement, this kind of chaos helps them. And that is the conversation that'll be happening in Beijing. It's they can't afford to be seen to be doing anything to like prolong this conflict, nor in Russia and Ukraine. So you see these half-assed kind of like, oh, we call on all sides to be peaceful, and we call for a ceasefire, and blah blah blah, which means
thoughts and prayers.
Yeah, exactly. You're the ones with the ear of Vladimir Putin. If you wanted to actually have influence in this, you could pick up the phone and say, hey, Vlad, we own you, stop what you're doing, right? That they could overnight. So in the Mideast, this helps them because it I don't want to say it hurts America, but it consumes America. And that means that's less political capital, less political oxygen that is spent on addressing the China challenge, which is a big one. You've got a ton of different things that you guys need to get in order to sort of move into an era where you can compete with China. And every day spent focusing on Ukraine, focusing on Israel, however like necessary, is a day that a little bit less attention is spent on China. And meanwhile, they're dealing with economic issues. They just had Li Keqiang, the former second in charge, die.
What happened? I just saw that headline again, trying to avoid the news. I'm like, what's going on over there?
Yeah. So
was it window cancer? What happened?
Heart attack, sudden heart attack.
He was a sudden heart attack. Okay.
68. Okay. Without getting into the deep histories of China, they have a real problem with popular second in charges dying young, because a guy called Hu Yaobang died in April 1989, and that was the cause of Tiananmen Square, because he was popular and the government kind of didn't respect him enough, and the students came out and protested. And so Li Keqiang is, if you don't like Xi, Li Keqiang was probably someone that you might have liked because he was seen as more moderate. So right now, everyone in China is going, oh God, is this another big problem? It's not going to be, but so they've got their own issues. And if you guys aren't paying attention to them, they're happy. They can make their plans to take Taiwan.
We don't want them to be happy, so we'll pay a little bit more attention. I'm sorry. I've got them in that category of supervillain, and they're not coming out anytime.
Well, I think the Chinese Communist Party definitely should be in that category.
Yeah. Okay. Good. All right.
I mean, I got to say, I had a great time in China, and the people are lovely, and it's a great country. But the Communist Party is and I'm on record as saying this for a long time, but a real cancer. Like they're a problem.
Yeah. Here we are again, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Here we are again. Okay.
Yeah. So we should move to the next time. Now,
we just got a lot of knowledage from you. That's so
we did. We have to absorb it now. We have to process everything.
I'm sorry. It's a little bit grim. I know. I apologize.
No, it's not yet. It feels a little more hopeful, honestly, because, China isn't the big dog yet. We still got some tricks up our sleeve. That's what I say.
Yeah, well, you always ask me off air why I moved to America from Australia. And one of the reasons is because I think America's got a couple of tricks up its sleeve. I wouldn't count you guys out yet.
Good. Oh, you know things. All right. So people are asking if you've written in the comments, if you've written anything about China that they can go and read. Is there anything that you've published or written?
I have. I think most of the stuff I've written recently is on our website. Okay. We kind of do updates, but I've written some other longest form stuff too, which, I can happily share with you guys as well and stick in the comments.
Perfect. All right. And the Google machine works for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah. So you can stick around for a few more minutes.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to run. Okay.
If you'll have me. Yeah.
Oh, we're going to put the timer on. You get as much time as you want.
Sorry,
we're going to get the timer on for our next segment.
No. We're good. You're good. We want you to talk. We don't. When we first started the show, when we were conceiving of it, LB was like, "We're going to have a guest, and as soon as the buzzer goes, we're just going to bang them. Just boom, we'll hit the button, and they won't even be on the screen anymore."
I just wanted to catch people in whatever their facial expression was.
I was like, I don't know. That seems like not nice, but it seems too gong showish for me.
It was very gong showish.
reinstate that rule.
Yes. Maybe. Well, it
It's like a
depends on.
dunk
It
tank, you
depends.
know?
Yeah. If I was running the show, it'd be a lot weirder. That's the takeaway. Yeah,
It
Greg's
lasted
less strange than me.
0 weeks. It lasted 0 weeks. That
It
policy.
lasted 0 weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, no one
0
liked it.
weeks.
No one
Yeah.
liked my idea.
Oh,
All right.
All right.
Right, well, so
Oh,
here
another
we go.
fun topic.
Holy
This is-
smoke.
So many fun topics. Okay. We had another super awful mass shooting this week. This time in Maine. Lots of people were dead. At last time I checked, they have not caught the guy yet, which is very, very disturbing. If they have, maybe somebody will put it in the comments and let me know. This is terrifying. Now we have laws now that allow people who shouldn't have these weapons, that shouldn't be in the hands of anybody that's a civilian, as everybody with a working brain knows and can see. But we keep doing the same thing. We keep arming these people. And now we have an entire state that is on lockdown effectively because of these laws, because this one crazy guy bought this assault rifle and, we don't know where he is. The one thing I want to say about it is, Susan Collins, just fuck Susan Collins forever. She's awful. I actually prefer kind of the Josh Hawley senators, or at least we know that he's an evil schmuck. Susan Collins, we always think maybe she'll do the right thing, and then she never does.
Yeah.
It's almost worse. But now, John, we were talking before. Australia had like one horrible mass shooting incident in the 90s, and then what did they do? What happened there? Tell everybody who might not know.
Yeah, I should know the date, but I'm pretty sure it was 96. Might have been 97. We had a really bad mass shooting in Tasmania at a tourist site. A guy went in with a semi-automatic and killed, I think, pretty close to 30 people. And we had brand new conservative government at the time, the government of John Howard. I think Australian politics is a lot more centrist. Our left and right are much closer to the center than in this country. But he very quickly announced a nationwide ban on semi-automatic and automatic weapons and a super strict licensing regime for every gun. So you can't just have a gun without a license, no matter what. Yeah. And we bought back all of the guns that people legally owned at the time, paid them, I don't know if it was market value, but a sum for their weapons and took them all off the streets. And it's been remarkably successful. We've had obviously shootings since then, but there hasn't been a mass event like that or like the ones that are just way too common here. Australia's a smaller country. We're about 28, 29. I think at the time we were more like 24 million people. So it's a lot easier. We didn't have as many guns. We don't have it in our constitution. So there's a ton of things that made it easier for us. But I think, American commentators have pointed to Australia as kind of a really good example of this, of like, you can do something about this if people want to do something about it. Like there are options to do things. It might be harder here, but it's not impossible, even though it seems like it is.
Yeah.
Can I ask you something? So, what is it like coming from Australia, having lived through that? You were old enough to live through that.
Yeah.
And
I remember it.
And remember it. And being here with the environment here and the culture here, right? Does it haunt you in a way? Like, what is it like to be from somewhere that had sense and then be here and have to go through this and watch it? Do you fear for yourself? Does it feel weird when you go out? I'm just curious, like, what is that headspace like for you?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I've lived in a bunch of places. So it's obviously Australia, China for 5 years. I've lived in the UK, Europe. All of these places don't really have guns. They're not really a thing that you need to kind of consider. I would say the biggest thing here is I'm a lot more reserved in public interactions. Like, if you get cut off on traffic in traffic, truly the first thing I think, and it sounds ridiculous, it's a small thing, but the first thing I think if I get cut off is just like, shut your mouth. You might have a gun. I live in Chicago too, so it's a real possibility,
Yeah.
So I think I wouldn't say that I'm scared every day because, you grapple with the odds of these things, and it's still a low percentage that you'll get caught up in it. But I think the thing is that I can't think about it for too long because it just doesn't make any logical sense to me. I don't understand the NRA. I don't understand the politics of it. I don't understand, like, I understand wanting to have a gun for hunting and for other things. I don't understand people who own guns, like, for those reasons, not wanting everybody else not to have guns to walk around on the streets. I guess that's where I come from. And so I think the rest of the world thinks that too. You know, Germany, all the Scandinavian countries, they have big hunting cultures, you know, like everyone loves to go out and shoot elk and all that kind of stuff. But they go like, yeah, but I need a license, and I put it away because I don't want my neighbor to be able to run around and have a few too many beers and potentially shoot me. So
this is the thing, right? So
yeah.
I am someone who is, you would never not know this, but I am someone who has lost someone to gun violence recently. And what I would say is, although I know the odds are that you are going to have someone close to you, those are the odds. Everyone's going to go through that at some point in this country with the number of weapons, the escalating number of incidents, the what's happening with our catastrophic mental health crisis.
Yeah.
Not that this shooting is clearly about that. This man was hearing voices. He was reaching out, and
so many of them are.
Yeah, and we turned around as a society and said, "Why don't you go train people?
Yeah.
Why don't you? You know, you have military training. Why don't you train people?" So it's not only was it you need to forfeit your guns right now because we need to give you care. It was going out. So we have a massive radicalization machine happening in this nation of radicalizing people towards violence, political violence, all kinds of violence. That has been going on, oh God, for 20 years now, but building and growing and becoming more powerful and personal through the devices, through everything everyone carries around in their hand 24/7 with these fucking phones and all the apps everybody's on. It's there. The funnels are there for grabbing people's minds, scrambling them and pushing them into violence. You don't know. Our brains are so fragile. They're so fragile. Look at the amount of time it took for millions of people, literally millions of people, to get radicalized into either QAnon or some, other far right belief, or believing that the election was rigged, all this other crap, right? And that when is World War, we need to now go civil war and take it out on the streets. It happens like that to very smart people who had stability for all intents and purposes before they got radicalized in a matter of days. Now, minutes it can. So the cocktail of that is an exponential odd, exponentially increasing your odds that this is going to happen to you. And let me tell you something. Every single one of those families that lost someone, or even just having someone shot and surviving, they are shattered. They are shattered. Everyone in that family is shattered. The bullet doesn't stop when it hits your loved one. It goes all through your family, and it fucks up and shatters everybody's life. And then you have to have tremendous internal resources to just survive it and try to get some semblance of your life back, because that kind of violent murder, especially, it's always horrible, but these are innocents. My brother was innocent. He had nothing. They don't know the shooter. You just have these crazies with guns coming in and just shooting up. So I feel for all those families, and I fear for all of us. Especially fear for also my family and all of those families that it might happen more than once, which is starting to happen to people as well.
Well, on that, I did see the New York Times interviewed a woman whose son was at one of the colleges in that town in Maine, who said that last month her daughter, who's in North Carolina, was in a lockdown for a shooter on their campus, and she was like, both my kids, within 6 weeks, have been, in the vicinity of mass shootings. And yeah, so I think your point is, you're absolutely right.
Yeah,
terrific.
I wish there were a concern from our allies abroad to actually come to the table for us and help lead our leadership towards the right path on this. I'm not saying Joe Biden, he's all for the assault rifle ban, but it feels like this is kind of it's a slow Normandy, but it's our Normandy.
It's an interesting point that you think you're saying it's in other allies' interest to kind of help you grapple with it, because it's fundamentally contributing to the decline of the US. It's an interesting point.
Yeah.
The one thing we have to say here, and we have to point this out every time this happens, is that most people in this country want sane gun laws. Most people want to ban these weapons.
Yeah.
Most, like high 80s, 90s. It's a bunch of gun fetishist whack jobs. And the only reason that we don't have this stuff is because of Republicans in the Senate. Not even the House. We've passed bills in the House. And maybe not now that, religious, Mike Johnson is there. But we've passed these things before. And it's Susan Collins. It's Mitch McConnell. It's Josh Hawley. It's Ted Cruz. Blaming the Doors. It's thoughts and prayers from these assholes. And they have to come out every time this happens and pretend to cry and be performative and, mutter something about how sorry they are. And then 2 days later, we all forget about it and they can go on their merry way. And, they can't be allowed to do that. We have to remind them of this every time. We have to vote these fucking people out for no other reason, because they're holding this up.
If
There's
this
no
level of death and carnage was happening because of lawmakers, if death and this carnage on the citizenry happening because of lawmakers doing dirty tricks to thwart it all against the will of the people in another nation, we would be in there diplomatically going, we're going to fucking start sanctioning some of your people if you don't figure this out. There's too many bodies.
Yeah, that's what we would say. So Susan Collins, I hope you never sleep well for the rest of your life. Fuck you forever. That's it. This happened in her state now, and she has to bear this on her soul, which maybe she doesn't have one because, again, Halloween, ghouls, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay.
Moving on. Now, John, you got to go, or you
now, John?
Make this quick. I know you said 9 o'clock. You were iffy. So
I can stick around if you want me to stick around. I'd be delighted to. It's lovely to chat with you. Okay, as long as I'm not cramping the vibe here with my.
No. Oh my gosh,
There's a lot of really down news this week. It's not always.
Still got a bit of drink to go too. So.
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Yes, drink. Everybody take a drink. Watching.
Yeah.
Even if it's water.
Again, it's International Intrigue, and it's internationalintrigue.io. So sign up for that.
Yep.
It's very, very good. Do we have any other announcements, LB?
This is our announcement segment. This is our portion where we announce things. And guess what? We almost never have any announcements.
Yeah.
So we have this pause. No, I have nothing other than promoting John's work. I've got no announcements. I've got nothing to add this week. I don't think. I might think of something later, but it's escaped my mind at the moment.
Yeah. We'll say thank you to everybody I saw there was new people signing up this week. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome to the club. It's a cool club, man. That's it. It's
happy to have you. Happy to have you. Join, subscribe, do all those great things. Hit the like, do everything that you know how to do on YouTube, and we really need you to do. It supports us. It keeps us going, and we want to show up every week and see. And we love this community that's been here.
We do.
They sort of built their own community around us. So we're in awe of you guys. Keep spreading the word. Keep hitting the subscribe. Keep hitting the likes, and join and become a member. We do things like after hours, just for members only, and we're going to work it out this season to get some more stuff in there for you guys. It's just for you. So we appreciate all the support. All right. Are we going to 8 minutes here?
We're going to 8 minutes. Holy
there
rollers,
we go.
holy
all right.
war, holy land, holy smokes, holy shit. George Santos, That's it. That's the segment.
That's the joke. That's the joke.
Now, this motherfucker, under superseding indictment. First, he's indicted. Then there's a superseding indictment. He's in the house. He's hanging out with Lauren Boebert, chatting about God knows what. Somebody posted it. Did you see this on Twitter? Somebody just saw him like on a Tuesday afternoon, just in a bank hanging out for no reason. He took pictures of him, and the guy's he's just in the bank. George Santos chatting up the tellers, sitting on the couch. Who the fuck knows why? Nobody understands.
Odd.
He's very, very odd. And, they don't do anything. The Republicans don't say anything. Oh, well, we have to let it go through the process. As soon as they get the Speaker of the House in, now suddenly they've found their conscience. And, some Republican congressmen from my state of New York are moving to kick his ass out. So, LB, what do you think about that?
I mean, I didn't even know. I was seeing pictures of him. I didn't know this was happening. I wasn't paying attention. I wasn't. And here we are to do this thing to be prepared, John, every Friday night. And all week I was like, yeah, I'm not watching anything. I'm not paying attention to anything. I don't want to know. It just felt like the week to be an ostrich and put my head in the sand. I was like, it's not happening. So I missed it. I was seeing pictures of him. The last thing I saw of him that I paid attention to and understood what was happening, and I still don't understand it, is he had a newborn baby and he was running through the halls with this baby. And I don't know why that was even why. Where did he get this baby? I still haven't. That has not been answered for me. Whose baby was it, and where did he get? Was it Nestor's baby? Whose baby is it? And so poor baby. But I have they done it? Have they kicked him out? What's happening?
Wait, somebody even said that he has a twin sister who's also a scammer, and there was a picture of her, and I honestly have no idea if that's real or not.
Oh, I saw that.
Like we've gone through the singularity or whatever the hell, where sometimes I'm just like, I don't know if this is a joke or not. I literally can't tell.
Have a twin?
Who knows? Maybe, I don't know. Could be, but it's very, very funny. So John, what do you think about all this?
Yes, John.
Set us straight.
Make us smarter.
I mean, I don't think you can get smarter when he's involved in the conversation. I think it's just a universal. Everyone gets a little bit dumber each time you talk about him. I don't know. I mean, obviously he shouldn't be sitting in Congress. The baseline is that you don't lie when you run for an election like that. I don't know what to say. I mean, this is probably going to be unpopular. I think it's probably a bit good that they're waiting to go through some sort of process because, what's that political rule that like you never do anything or never call for anything that you would want your enemies not to have? The idea that, Democrats get the majority and then Republicans start to call for every person who, filed a tax return late doesn't, gets unseated. But beyond that, I mean, the guy needs help too. Like he's obviously got some serious issues.
He is so disordered. Okay,
Yeah.
so we, look, this is what we need you to tell us, because we can look at Mike Dick, the Johnson guy, right, and know
that will never not make me laugh.
All right, you're like Iran. We can find plenty of you over there, right? Like this isn't hard, right? And the Taliban, of course, we've got plenty of. They can offer up many Mike Dicks. But is there an equivalent to George Santos anywhere else in the world? Any other government? Have you ever seen anything like this?
I mean, if you it depends what angle you come at it from. If you think about corruption, I mean, you guys are Bush League when it comes to global corruption.
I don't mean corruption. I mean, like
just
one
like
day,
lunatic.
he's from Brazil and he has many names, and then he runs with the baby. And what is this?
Nothing comes to mind that I haven't ever seen anything quite like that, right? Australia's had, let me be very clear, Australia has had its fair share of absolute clowns get elected. But probably not quite to his level. He takes the cake, I think.
I think he does. He's taking the cake.
I do have an analog, maybe a little bit.
Oh.
Okay. So we have to go back in history, Russian history, of course, to the time of troubles, which is the period of time after the death of Ivan the Terrible in 1580 something. And then his son was there for a year and a half. And then there was just this period of time where there was nobody that could be the czar. And there was famines and there was the economy crash and it was horrible. and it was called The Time of Troubles. Like it's like, some fantasy novel, but that's really what they called it. And they weren't sure who the next czar was going to be, but there was a rumor that there was an heir to the throne named Dmitri, who they thought had been killed by somebody way back when. Well, one day, a guy shows up in Moscow and says, "I am Dmitri. I'm the czar now." And the boyars look around and they're like, I don't know. Probably they're a little drunk. I don't know. Make him. I guess he's the czar. What can we do? He's Dmitri. So Dmitri takes the throne of Russia. This is real, okay? And rules for, I don't know, a year or something, 6 months, whatever it is. And then they figure out that he's just some dude from Poland who just waltzed in.
There he goes. There we go.
And said he was Dmitri. And he's known in history as the false Dmitri. And they killed him and chopped his body up, put it in a cannon and fired it towards Poland. That's what they did. And then it happened again. Because there's actually 2 false Dimitris. Yeah, that's it. That's what it reminds me of. George Santos as false Dmitri. I could see that maybe.
Is he gonna next? I feel like you're speaking to the future a little bit here. Maybe you're having a moment of clarity and clairvoyance. Perhaps he's going to now make the claim that he's the missing Romanov, or somehow I could see that. I could see him doing that.
Yeah.
So, and if we could put all these people in a cannon and shoot them off into outer, I'm in,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't think they're.
I don't like that. I don't like the violence. But
no, but I mean, shooting it in the general direction of Poland. I think that was the line. In and again, this is a boring,
Poland.
solid history class, And the Poland. We can end on Poland.
We wanted to ask about Poland, John. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Poland, and that'll take us out? We could sneak it in a holy
quick.
Hole. Yeah.
Yeah. Big news there is they had it's good news to end on as well. They had their election a couple of weeks ago now, I think. And they've been governed for a while now. I think probably 6 or 7 years at least, maybe longer, by a fairly right-wing, authoritarian-leaning government. Super, anti, like they reform the courts, all that kind of stuff. You're all familiar with that playbook.
Yeah.
But I think it was a bit of a surprise. The right-wing party still won the most seats, but Poland's politics means that they won this large chunk, but then no one else supported them. So all these opposition parties won more power. So Donald Tusk, who used to be the former EU commissioner back about 5-6 years ago, he's going to be the new prime minister. He's pretty pro-EU. He's pretty kind of like, he's going to bring Poland back into the realms of like squarely into democracy. And I think it's a really good news story out of that part of the world, because there's a few countries in kind of Eastern Europe that are
Hungary,
a little bit worrying.
Yeah.
Hungary, Slovakia's got some issues. Serbia, take the wins where we can get it with Poland.
Yeah, we take the
Yay, Poland!
Yeah, Poland. Yeah. And the citizens there are they do take to the streets about things and mass protest, and they've done that because I know some people from Poland. When I go to Berlin, I get the skinny on what's happening on the ground, and they go out and protest and they do all this stuff. So they deserve their democracy.
Well, that's a country that doesn't take it for granted. Yeah, it doesn't take their position between. Yeah, and
for me, the way that the Polish citizenry and even the government at the time absorbed the Ukrainians fleeing from
incredible,
right, and what they did, incredible, and compare that to just how challenging it was to get the neighbors of Gaza to do the same, and the kind of diplomacy that had to be leveraged there just to get them to agree to do so. Poland, good on you. Isn't that what we say if we're Australian? Good on you.
Good on you.
Good on you on every level.
Good on you. That's it. Just like that.
Oh my gosh. Well,
okay, so again, internationalintrigue.io. Sign up because it is really great. It's fantastic. John Fowler, thank you so much for joining us. Everybody, thanks for watching. LB, you get the final word tonight.
I do. Well, you know what, John, we have a little saying around here. You know what it is?
I do not. Tell me. Enlighten me.
We're going to get through this.